Sometimes they choose places that we think are so weird, but for them, they might be perfect. I removed bees from a speaker on someone's porch, a tire, an RV. It's amazing places that bees choose to build. The first thing I do when I get to a bee room situation is I assess the temperament of the colony. I try to get a read on if they're going to be a gentle, docile colony or if they might be a little bit more aggressive. So I just start to gather clues like the size of the colony or how long they've been there or how many resources they have to try to get a read on the temperament. And then sometimes I have to find the location of the actual hive. So if I'm looking at a wall, I might not know exactly where the bees are located in that wall. Sometimes I have to, pinpoint the exact location of that hive, and then I make a plan for how to get in there and remove the bees in the best and safest way possible. I always wear protective gear when I need to. Beekeeping gear, it's big and bulky, and it has to be to prevent you from getting stung. But anybody who's worn gloves knows it's harder to do everything in gloves. And so those beekeeping gloves are like welding gloves. You lose a lot of dexterity, which is so important when you're working with these tiny little creatures. The veil, you lose some visibility. In the suit, you certainly lose a lot of mobility. The less gear I wear, the more comfortable I am many times. So if the bees will let me work alongside them without wearing as much protective gear, a lot of times I'll choose to do so. I give them everything they need, all the resources they need to continue the work that they do. And hopefully they'll stick around. They can choose to swarm or leave again. I don't harvest and sell honey. As a beekeeper, it's just not what I love about bees. So, I just let them live here and live out their bee lives and continue to do the work that's so important for our planet. Bees are so important to the diversity of our ecosystem and our food system, and they do so much for our planet. So it's really important that we do whatever we can to help them. People think that bees want to sting them all the time, and that's just not true. Not all bees want to sting you all the time. And if you see a bee, the best thing to do is just let her be. Leave her alone. If you have a question or you see a lot of bees, call a professional beekeeper, and they can help you figure out what's going on with the bees. But it's really important that if you see a hive that needs to be removed, you don't call an exterminator who will likely kill the bees. Call a beekeeper who will rescue and relocate the bees.